The human sat in the back corner of advanced weaponry design, looking entirely too calm for someone who had just transferred into the most prestigious military academy in the Galactic Federation. Instructor Vreltok clicked his mandibles together in satisfaction as he surveyed the classroom of 43 students. 42 promising young cadets from 17 different species, all eager to prove themselves in the art of modern warfare. And then there was her, the human, Mira Kade. Today, Vreltok announced, his triple-jointed arms spreading wide in a gesture of grandeur, you will demonstrate everything you have learned this semester. Your assignment is simple. Build a weapon. Any weapon. You have 4 hours. The top 3 designs will be fast-tracked for prototype development and military testing. A ripple of excitement passed through the classroom. This was it. The moment that separated the brilliant from the merely adequate. Vreltok's eye-stalks swiveled toward Mira. Miss Kade, I trust you understand the parameters? A weapon. Not a, what do your people call them? A friendship bracelet. Several students chittered with laughter. The human had only been at the academy for 6 weeks, and already she had become something of a curiosity. During combat simulations, she refused to use standard plasma rifles, instead insisting on close-quarters tactics that made the medical staff nervous. In theoretical warfare classes, she proposed strategies that were either brilliant or completely insane, depending on who you asked. Mira looked up from her datapad, her brown eyes unreadable. I understand perfectly, Instructor. A weapon. Excellent. Vreltok activated his teaching drone, a sleek piece of technology worth more than most students would earn in their first year of service. It hummed to life, hovering beside him like a metallic pet. You may access the fabrication lab. Materials are unlimited within reason. Your time begins now. The classroom erupted into motion. Cleven, a 6-limbed Thorsian with scales that shimmered like oil on water, immediately began sketching designs for what appeared to be an enhanced plasma cannon. Beside him, Tara Bronson, another human and the only one who had befriended Mira, started programming specifications for smart minds. Even little Pip, a glimmer barely 3 feet tall, was interfacing with the holographic display to design something involving gravitational fields. Mira stood up slowly, stretching her arms above her head in a gesture that made her look remarkably unconcerned. She walked past the other students, ignoring their frantic energy, and entered the fabrication lab with the casual air of someone going to make lunch. Vreltok's mandibles twitched. Arrogance? Stupidity? He couldn't tell with humans. They were new to the Federation. Having only made contact 7 years ago, their planet Earth was a Category 4 death world, which explained why they were so disturbingly durable, but their technology had been primitive. Chemical rockets, kinetic firearms, nothing compared to plasma weapons and quantum shields. Still, Vreltok had to admit they learned fast. Too fast, according to some. 2 hours passed. The instructor circulated through the lab, observing progress. Krelevin's plasma cannon was taking shape nicely, though perhaps a bit conventional. Tara's mines showed promise, incorporating AI targeting that could distinguish between friend and foe based on biometric signatures. Others were working on everything from sonic disruptors to molecular destabilizers. Then there was Mira. She stood at a workbench in the corner, and what she was building made absolutely no sense. Miss Kade, Vreltok said, approaching her station. What exactly is that? Mara looked up, sawdust in her hair. Sawdust. In a advanced fabrication lab. Somehow she had convinced the fabrication unit to produce wood, of all things. A bow, she said simply. Vreltok stared. A bow. Yes, sir. As in the primitive projectile launcher? That would be the one. The instructor felt his secondary stomach clench. Miss Kade, I know your species has a fondness for nostalgia, but this is advanced weaponry design, not a history class. We are building tools for modern warfare. Mira picked up the curved piece of wood, running her fingers along its surface with something that looked almost like affection. With respect, sir, you said to build a weapon. You didn't specify the type. I assumed, Vreltok said, his voice dripping with the kind of sarcasm that translated well across species, That my students would have the basic intelligence to understand that we are not fighting wars with sticks and stones anymore. Assumptions can be dangerous in warfare, Mira replied, completely unfazed. She reached for another piece of wood, this one thinner and more flexible, a bowstring. Vreltok realized with growing horror. She was actually making a bowstring. You have 2 hours remaining, he said stiffly. I suggest you reconsider your approach. But Mira just smiled. It was not a reassuring expression. Vreltok returned to his desk at the front of the room, where his teaching drone bobbed in the air beside him. The device was state-of-the-art, equipped with holographic projectors, advanced sensors, and enough computing power to run complex simulations. It cost more than some spacecraft. The timer ticked down. 90 minutes. 60. 30. Students began finishing their projects. Krelevin's plasma cannon could theoretically punch through 6 inches of reinforced hull plating. Tara's mines could clear a battlefield in seconds. A Vexian student named Court had designed a neural disruptor that could incapacitate enemies without permanent damage. And Mira had made a bow. And arrows. 6 of them, with what appeared to be metal tips she had fabricated from standard alloy stock. When the timer hit 0, Vreltok stood. Time is up. Power down your stations and prepare for demonstrations. This was the part where students would present their weapons, explain the theory behind them, and if possible, demonstrate their functionality. The fabrication lab had a testing range specifically for this purpose, complete with target dummies and shield barriers. We'll go in order of completion, Vreltok announced. Krelevin, you are first. The Thorsian hefted his plasma cannon with 4 of his 6 limbs. It was an impressive piece of work, streamlined and efficient. He powered it up, the weapon humming with barely contained energy, and fired at a target dummy 50 meters downrange. The blast was spectacular. The dummy vaporized in a flash of superheated plasma. Scattered applause from the other students. Vreltok nodded approvingly. Excellent work. Power output 300 kilowatts per shot, sir. Magazine capacity of 48 charges. Very good. Next. One by one, students demonstrated their creations. Tara's mines performed flawlessly, deploying in a perfect grid and detonating in a synchronized pattern. Court's neural disruptor made a volunteer student temporarily lose motor control until the medtech administered the counter-agent. A Kixion student named Vel had created something called a phase blade that could cut through nearly any material by vibrating at specific frequencies. Each demonstration was more impressive than the last. These were the weapons of the future. Clean, efficient, technologically advanced. Then it was Mira's turn. She walked to the center of the testing range, carrying her bow and 6 arrows in a simple quiver she had somehow fashioned from scrap material. The weapon looked absurd next to the gleaming plasma cannons and neural disruptors. It looked like something from a museum or a toy shop. Miss Kade, Vreltok said, not bothering to hide his disappointment. Please explain your design. Mira held up the bow. This is a recurve bow made from composite materials designed to mimic the flexibility and strength of ancient yew wood. The string is a carbon fiber blend. Draw weight is approximately 70 pounds. Effective range is around 200 meters, though accuracy drops significantly beyond 100. The classroom was silent. Not the impressed silence that had followed Krelevin's plasma cannon. This was the awkward silence of collective embarrassment. I see, Vreltok said slowly. And you believe this? Bow represents cutting-edge weaponry. I believe, Mira said, that every weapon has situational applications. Plasma rifles need power cells. Neural disruptors can be shielded against. Molecular destabilizers require complex targeting systems. This bow needs nothing but the strength of my arm and the skill I have practiced since I was 8 years old. How charmingly primitive, Vreltok said. His teaching drone bobbed closer, its sensors focusing on the bow as if trying to understand what possible threat such an antiquated device could pose. And you intend to demonstrate this weapon's effectiveness? How exactly? Mira smiled again. That same unsettling smile from earlier. I thought I would shoot something. We have target dummies. I was thinking something more challenging, Mira interrupted. She looked directly at the teaching drone hovering beside Vrelatok. How about that? Every student in the room inhaled sharply. The teaching drone was not just expensive, it was Vrelatok's pride and joy. He had personally designed several of its features. He had written papers about its capabilities. Absolutely not, Vrelatok said immediately. That drone represents months of work and considerable expense. Choose a dummy like everyone else. But sir, Mira said, her voice taking on a tone of innocent confusion, you said this was advanced weaponry design. Shooting stationary targets proves nothing. A real weapon needs to be tested against a real threat. Your drone is moving, has defensive sensors and could theoretically evade an attack. Wouldn't that be a better test? She had him. Vrelatok could see it in the faces of the other students. If he refused, he would look like he was protecting his drone at the expense of a proper evaluation. If he agreed and she missed, she would look foolish. If he agreed and she hit it, no. That was impossible. The drone had proximity sensors. Even if by some miracle her arrow got close, the drone would dodge effortlessly. Fine, Vrelatok said. If you can hit my drone, I will personally recommend your bow for prototype development. Mira nodded. She knocked an arrow, the movement smooth and practiced. The bow came up. Her anchor point was consistent, her stance textbook perfect. Well, perfect for an archer, which was not particularly relevant in a modern warfare context. The drone hovered at the other end of the range approximately 75 meters away. Its sensors locked onto Mira, tracking her every micro-movement. Mira drew the bowstring back. Her arms trembled slightly with the effort. 70 pounds of draw weight was not inconsiderable, even for a human from a death world. She exhaled slowly, steadying herself. Then she released. The arrow flew through the air with a soft whisper of displaced atmosphere. No plasma burn, no energy signature, nothing that the drone's advanced sensors were calibrated to detect as a threat, because honestly, who used projectile weapons anymore? The arrow struck the drone dead center. There was a spectacular shower of sparks as circuits fried and components shattered. The drone made a sound like a dying electronic bird and plummeted to the ground, where it landed with a deeply unsatisfying crunch. Silence. Complete. Absolute. Silence. Mira lowered her bow. I believe that concludes my demonstration, sir. Vrelatok stared at the smoking remains of his teaching drone, at the arrow protruding from its central processing unit, at the human girl who stood there with an expression of polite attentiveness. You, he started. You just shot your drone? Yes, sir. As requested? That was a 200,000 credit piece of equipment. Was it? Mira tilted her head. I'm sorry about that. Though in fairness, you did give me permission. Several students were trying very hard not to laugh. Tara had her hand clamped over her mouth. Krelevin's scales had flushed a color that suggested he was oscillating between horror and admiration. Vrelatok's mandibles worked soundlessly for several seconds. Then, with tremendous effort, he regained his composure. Class dismissed. Miss Kade remained behind. The other students fled like their lives depended on it, which, given the expression on Vrelatok's face, might not have been an overreaction. When they were alone, Vrelatok approached Mira. The shattered drone lay between them like a corpse at a funeral. That, he said quietly, was either the most brilliant or most idiotic thing I have seen in 20 years of teaching. I am hoping for brilliance, sir. You destroyed Federation property. You gave me permission to shoot it. I expected you to miss. Mira shrugged. Expectations, sir. We discussed how dangerous those can be. Vrelatok wanted to be angry. He really did. But as he looked at the human, with her primitive bow and her completely unrepentant expression, he felt something else entirely. It was a feeling he had not experienced in a long time. It was respect. The next class, he said slowly, will involve designing defensive systems. I suggest you participate with more conventional choices. Of course, sir. And Mira? Yes, sir. Next time you want to prove a point, perhaps choose a target that costs less than a small spacecraft. Mira smiled. I will keep that in mind, sir. Though technically the bow and 6 arrows cost approximately 40 credits in materials. Return on investment was quite favorable. Reltok made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a groan. With humans he was learning, it was often hard to tell the difference. As Mira left the classroom, bow slung over her shoulder like some ancient warrior, heading home from battle, Reltok looked down at his destroyed drone one more time. Then he pulled out his communicator and made a call to the Academy Commandant. Sir? Yes, this is Reltok. I need to report an incident. Also, I believe we may need to revise our weaponry curriculum. Why? Well, it is a long story involving a human, a bow and several thousand credits worth of damaged equipment. No, sir, I am not joking. I wish I was. He ended the call and looked at the arrow still embedded in the drone's central processor. Primitive, outdated, completely impractical for modern warfare, and yet somehow devastatingly effective. Humans, Reltok thought with a mixture of exasperation and fascination, were going to change everything about the way the galaxy fought its wars. He just hoped they would warn him before shooting anything else expensive. The fallout from the drone incident spread through the academy faster than a plasma leak in a pressurized hull. By the next morning, everyone knew. The human girl had shot Instructor Reltok's prized teaching drone out of the air with a weapon that belonged in a museum. Some versions of the story claimed she had done it blindfolded. Others insisted she had used a flaming arrow. One particularly creative rumor suggested she had done it while reciting ancient Earth poetry. The truth, as Mira discovered while eating breakfast in the academy cafeteria, was somehow both more and less impressive than the rumors. You actually did it, Tara said, sliding her tray onto the table across from Mira. I thought Krelevin was exaggerating, but you actually shot that thing right out of the air. Mira swallowed a mouthful of something the cafeteria claimed was oatmeal, but tasted like recycled cardboard mixed with optimism. It was hovering, not flying. There is a difference. To you maybe, to the rest of us, it was a moving target with advanced sensors that should have seen your arrow coming from a kilometer away. Tara leaned forward, lowering her voice. How did you do it? Practice. Lots of practice. That cannot be the whole answer. Mira shrugged. The drone's sensors were calibrated for energy weapons and high-velocity projectiles. An arrow traveling at around 70 meters per second does not register as a threat to most modern defensive systems. It is too slow, too low-tech. The sensors probably classified it as debris or ignored it entirely until it was too late. Tara blinked. So you exploited a blind spot in Federation military technology using a weapon that is literally thousands of years old. More or less. That is either genius or insane. My instructors back on Earth could never decide which either, Mira said. She took another bite of terrible oatmeal. Has Reltok filed charges yet? No idea, but I heard the Commandant wants to see you after third period. Perfect. Mira had been expecting that. You did not destroy expensive Federation property without someone important wanting to have words with you. Stern words, possibly career-ending words. She finished her breakfast in silence, trying not to think about the possibility of being expelled from the academy. Her family had been so proud when she had been accepted. First human in the advanced weaponry design program, a chance to prove that Earth deserved its place in the Galactic Federation. A chance to show that humans were not just durable primitives from a death world, but legitimate contributors to galactic society. And she had celebrated by destroying a 200,000 credit teaching drone with a bow and arrow. Her mother was going to kill her, assuming the Commandant did not do it first. Third period crawled by with agonizing slowness. Applied xenobiology. Mira spent the entire hour staring at holographic diagrams of Thorsian circulatory systems, while her mind replayed the moment that arrow had struck home. The satisfying thunk of impact, the shower of sparks, Reltok's expression of absolute horror. Worth it, she decided. Even if she got expelled, that moment had been absolutely worth it. When the class finally ended, Mira made her way to the Commandant's office. The Academy's administrative building was all sleek metal and soft lighting, designed to impress visitors with the Federation's technological superiority. Mira's boots echoed on the polished floors as she walked. each step feeling like a countdown to judgment. The Commandant's secretary, a efficient Kixian named Plex, gestured toward the door with 3 of her 4 arms. Go right in, she is expecting you. Mira took a deep breath and entered. Commandant Thresisilla sat behind a desk that looked like it had been carved from a single piece of crystalline mineral. She was a Veltharian, tall and elegant, with skin that shimmered between purple and blue depending on the light. Her eyes, all 4 of them, focused on Mira with uncomfortable intensity. Cadet Kade, she said. Her voice was surprisingly warm. Please sit. Mira sat. The chair was designed for Veltharian proportions and felt awkwardly large. I suppose you know why you are here? The drone incident, ma'am. Indeed. Thresisilla pulled up a holographic display showing the footage from yesterday's class. Mira watched herself draw, aim and release. Watched the arrow fly. Watched the drone die. Instructor Vreltok filed a report. A very detailed report. He seemed quite upset. I can imagine, ma'am. Can you? Thresisilla paused. The footage at the moment of impact. That drone represented months of his personal time and significant academy resources. It was a teaching tool used by multiple classes. Its destruction has caused considerable inconvenience. Mira kept her expression neutral. Yes, ma'am, I understand. Do you? Because from where I sit it appears you deliberately destroyed Federation property to prove a point about primitive weaponry. I destroyed it because Instructor Vreltok gave me permission to shoot it, ma'am. He expected you to miss. That sounds like a failure of threat assessment on his part, ma'am. Thresisilla's eyes widened slightly. Then, to Mira's complete surprise, she laughed. It was a musical sound like wind chimes in a breeze. You have remarkable audacity, Cadet. Cadet. That is either going to make you an exceptional officer, or get you killed in the field, possibly both. I am hoping for the first one, ma'am. The Commandant waved a hand and the hologram disappeared. Tell me something. Why a bow? You had access to the entire fabrication lab. You could have designed anything. A plasma weapon. A railgun. Something with actual military applications. Instead you chose one of the most primitive ranged weapons in human history. Why? Mira considered her answer carefully. Because everyone else was building weapons designed to defeat modern defenses. Plasma-resistant armor. Quantum shields. Neural dampeners. The entire arms race of the last 1,000 years has been about creating better weapons and better defenses against those weapons. It is an escalating cycle. And sometimes the best way to win is not to play that game at all. A bow has no power signature to detect, no energy emissions to track. It is quiet. It is simple. It works in environments where electronic weapons fail, and most importantly, nobody expects it. Thresisilla tapped her fingers on the desk, a rhythmic pattern that seemed thoughtful, the element of surprise. Exactly, ma'am. Modern warfare is built on predictability. We know what weapons the enemy has, because they know what weapons we have. Everyone is using variations of the same technology. But if you introduce something completely unexpected, something so old it is new again, you create an advantage, a temporary advantage. Once your enemy adapts. Once they adapt, you adapt again. That is the nature of warfare, ma'am. Constant evolution. The Commandant was quiet for a long moment. Her 4 eyes studied Mira with an intensity that made the human want to squirm. Finally, she spoke. You remind me of someone, one of the first Veltharian tactical instructors at this academy. She had a saying, the best weapon is the one your enemy does not anticipate. She was killed in the Third Border War, but her theories revolutionized our approach to asymmetric combat. Mira did not know what to say to that, so she said nothing. I am not going to expel you, Thresisilla said abruptly, though I suspect Instructor Vreltok might prefer that outcome. Relief flooded through Mira, so suddenly she felt lightheaded. Thank you, ma'am. Do not thank me yet. You will be reimbursing the Academy for the cost of that drone. Your stipend will be garnished for the next 8 months. You will also be writing a formal apology to Instructor Vreltok, and assisting him with recalibrating his replacement drone when it arrives. Yes, ma'am, of course, ma'am. Additionally, Thrasila continued, and now there was something calculating in her expression, you will be preparing a demonstration for the Academy War Games next month. Mira blinked. Ma'am? The War Games are our annual competition. Teams of cadets face off in simulated combat scenarios. Winners receive commendations, preferential assignment choices, and significant prestige. This year, I want you to lead a team. Lead a team, ma'am. I have only been here 6 weeks. And in those 6 weeks you have demonstrated tactical thinking that challenges conventional doctrine. That is exactly what I want. Thrasila pulled up another holographic display, this one showing a roster of students. You will select 5 cadets to join your team. They can be from any program, any species. Your objective will be simple: win. Against teams that have been training together for months, with conventional weapons and tactics? Yes. Using what, exactly? I cannot exactly arm my team with bows and arrows. Thrasila smiled. It was not a comforting expression. Use whatever you think will give you an advantage. Surprise me, Cadet Kade. You have already proven you are capable of that. The meeting ended shortly after. Mira left the Commandant's office feeling like she had just been handed both a gift and a curse wrapped in the same package. Led a team in the War Games against cadets who had been training for this since they arrived, with no support, no budget, and no real authority. Perfect. Just perfect. She found Tara in the library, studying tactical manuals with the kind of focus that suggested an upcoming exam. I need your help, Mira said without preamble. Tara looked up. Did the Commandant expel you? No. Worse. She wants me to lead a team in the War Games. That is worse than expulsion? It might be. I need to recruit 5 cadets willing to try unconventional tactics against teams with months of preparation. Interested? Tara closed her manual. You are serious. Unfortunately. What is our chance of winning? Honestly, maybe 20%, 30% if we get lucky. Tara considered this. Then she grinned. I am in. When do we start? By the end of the week, Mira had assembled her team. Tara was the easy choice. Another human who understood Earth military history and asymmetric warfare. Krelevin joined next, intrigued by the challenge of defeating opponents using unexpected methods. A glimmer engineer named Zik signed on, excited by the prospect of building custom equipment. Rounding out the team were Jorn, a hulking Crothian whose species specialized in close combat, and Liss, a Vexian pilot with reflexes fast enough to dodge plasma fire. They were an odd group. Too diverse. Too inexperienced. Too willing to try things that more sensible cadets would reject immediately. In other words, exactly what Mira needed. Their first planning session took place in an unused storage room Tara had discovered. Mira stood before a holographic projector displaying the War Games arena, a complex environment mixing urban terrain, open ground and vertical spaces. Here is the situation, she began. We are facing 8 other teams. Most of them have been preparing for months. They know each other's strengths and weaknesses. They have practiced tactics until they can execute them perfectly. We have 3 weeks. So we are doomed, Jorn rumbled. His species were not known for optimism. We would be doomed if we tried to beat them at their own game. But we are not going to do that. Mira zoomed in on specific sections of the arena. They will be expecting plasma fights and tactical positioning, energy shields and suppressive fire, standard Federation combat doctrine. We are going to give them something else entirely. Bows and arrows? Krelvin asked, his scales shimmering with what might have been amusement. Maybe some bows, but also traps, ambushes, psychological warfare, anything that breaks their expectations and forces them to adapt on the fly. Speed and confusion. Hit and run, make them afraid of every shadow. Liss leaned forward, her compound eyes glittering. Guerrilla tactics. Exactly. We cannot match them in firepower or training time, but we can be unpredictable. We can make them doubt. And doubt in combat is more dangerous than any weapon. Over the next 3 weeks the team trained like their lives depended on it. Zik fabricated equipment that nobody had seen before. smoke generators, flash charges, grappling hooks, even a few bows after Mira demonstrated their effectiveness to the group. John practiced close-quarters techniques that turned his natural strength into devastating advantage. Liz learned to pilot the arena's environmental systems, controlling lighting and obstacles remotely, and Mira drilled them endlessly on one principle above all others: adapt, improvise, overcome. The night before the war games, Tara found Mira sitting alone on the Academy's observation deck, staring out at the stars. "Having second thoughts?" Tara asked. "Third and fourth thoughts," Mira admitted. "We are either going to look brilliant or completely stupid tomorrow. Could be both. That is what I am afraid of." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Tara spoke again. "You know what I think? I think you already won." "How do you figure?" "Because tomorrow, 9 teams are going to walk into that arena expecting a normal competition. Standard tactics, standard weapons, standard results. And we are going to show them that there is nothing standard about humans, or about people willing to think differently." Tara stood, stretching. "Get some sleep, Mira. Tomorrow we make history. Or at least, give Vertok something else to file a report about." The war games began at dawn. 9 teams, 45 cadets. One arena filled with enough tactical complexity to test the brightest military minds in the Federation. Mira's team entered through the eastern gate, moving silently through the artificial urban terrain. Above them, holographic displays showed spectators their positions. Thousands of students, instructors, and even some active military personnel had gathered to watch. The first team they encountered never knew what hit them. Literally, Zik smoke charges filled the narrow street with choking clouds. Jorn emerged from cover like a nightmare, taking down 2 cadets before they could even raise their plasma rifles. Mira's arrows, silent and unexpected, eliminated the team leader from 30 meters away. Victory in under 2 minutes. The second engagement lasted longer. A Thorsian heavy team that tried to use superior firepower, but Liz had hacked the arena's environmental systems, plunging entire sections into darkness. Tara's mines, scattered strategically, channeled the enemy into kill zones where Krelevin waited with weapons that should not have worked but did anyway because nobody expected them. By midday, 3 teams had been eliminated. The spectators were in an uproar. Commentators struggled to explain what they were seeing. Conventional tactics failing against approaches that seemed lifted from ancient warfare manuals. In the Commandant's viewing box, Thresizala watched with undisguised satisfaction. Beside her, Instructor Vreltok's mandibles clicked in what might have been grudging approval. "Your human is causing quite the disruption," he observed. "Our human," Thresizala corrected. "And yes, that is exactly what I hoped for." The final match came down to Mira's team versus the Academy favorites. A group led by Torvin Max, a brilliant Crothian strategist who had won every tactical simulation for 2 years running. His team moved with mechanical precision, adapting to threats with practiced efficiency. They met in the arena's central plaza, an open space that offered no cover and no advantage to either side. Torvin's voice echoed across the plaza through his communicator, amplified for the spectators. "Cadet Kade, an impressive showing, but this ends here. Surrender and save yourself the embarrassment of defeat." Mira notched an arrow. Around her, her team took positions that looked chaotic but were carefully planned. "Counter-proposal, you surrender, and I promise not to shoot anything expensive this time." Torvin laughed. "Bold words, but words are not weapons." "No," Mira agreed. "But this is..." She released. The arrow flew not toward Torvin, but toward the holographic projector tower at the plaza's center. It struck the control panel with precision, and suddenly every display in the arena went dark. Chaos erupted. In the confusion, Mira's team moved like ghosts, using the darkness they had trained in for weeks. Torvin's team, dependent on their tactical displays and sensor readouts, hesitated for just a moment. That moment was enough. When the lights came back on 3 minutes later, Torvin's entire team was marked as eliminated. Mira stood in the center of the plaza, bow at rest, surrounded by her equally stunned teammates. The silence lasted exactly 2 seconds. Then the crowd exploded. Later, much later, after the awards ceremony and the congratulations and the flood of attention from military recruiters, Mira found herself back in Vreltok's classroom. The instructor stood beside a brand new teaching drone. This one supposedly equipped with better sensors. "I watched your performance today," he said without preamble. "It was unorthodox, reckless, entirely against standard tactical doctrine." "Yes, sir. It was also brilliant. You identified your opponent's assumptions and turned those assumptions into weaknesses. That is the mark of a true strategist." He paused. "I owe you an apology, Cadet Kade. When you built that bow, I thought you were mocking the class. I understand now that you were teaching it." Mira felt something unfamiliar in her chest. Pride, maybe, or vindication. "Thank you, sir. That means a lot. Do not let it go to your head. You still owe me 8 months of stipend payments for my original drone." "Worth it, sir." Vreltok's mandibles twitched in what might have been a smile. "Get out of my classroom, cadet, and try not to shoot anything else expensive for at least a few weeks." As Mira left, she passed Commandant Thresizala in the hallway. The Valtharian nodded once, a gesture of acknowledgement between warriors. "Well done, Cadet K." "Thank you, ma'am. You have proven something important today, not just about unconventional tactics, but about the value of thinking beyond established parameters. The Federation needs more officers like you, officers who question, who adapt, who refuse to accept that the old ways are always the best ways." Mira nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "Rest well tonight," Thresizala continued. "Tomorrow your real education begins, and I promise you, it will make shooting a drone seem simple by comparison." She walked away, leaving Mira standing alone in the corridor. Through the windows, the stars shone with cold clarity, vast and unknowable. Somewhere out there were threats the Federation had not yet encountered, enemies who would challenge everything they knew about warfare. And when that day came, Mira thought with quiet determination, the galaxy would learn what Earth had known for thousands of years. The most dangerous weapon was not the newest or most powerful. It was the one nobody saw coming. She slung her bow over her shoulder and headed back to her quarters, already thinking about what impossible things she might accomplish tomorrow. After all, she had 3 more years at the Academy, 3 more years to prove that humanity deserved its place among the stars, 3 more years to show them that sometimes the old ways were not just good enough, they were better.